There are roughly 50 days left to the GCSE exams this year, and if you don't feel ready or you haven't started revision, you've clicked on the right video, because this video is going to reassure you but also give you a 50-day intense revision plan to make sure that you are not disappointed on results day. Because if you work hard and follow this plan, you won't have to experience that. I'm sure the stress is kicking in for many students as we approach the Easter holidays and you get into a time of intense revision. It can get quite stressful, but by planning and strategizing, knowing exactly what you're going to do and when, you can definitely reduce this stress and achieve the best grades possible. This video will be split up into 6 separate weeks, representing the 6 weeks left till the GCSEs. Using the rest of this weekend, you really need a reality check. Open a Google document, write down all the topics for all the subjects that you need to revise using specifications, so you get a reality check of how much you actually need to revise. This is probably going to surprise you when you realize how much content you have to do and stress you out a little bit, but that's good because you can put that stress towards getting some good revision done. By the start of week 1, you want to have planned exactly what content and how much content you want to have finished and by what date. Once you've done this, you can then make the decision of whether you're going to make your own resources, which I believe is much better for understanding, although it is very time consuming and there might not be enough time left. So if you do that, you have to commit to the grind. Or use the free resources you can find online, which might not be to the quality you want, so you probably have to edit them, but it's less time consuming than making them from the beginning. But also you don't get as much understanding from physically typing or writing them out. So that's the decision you need to make by week 1 to get it out of the way, and so you don't waste time procrastinating over which way to go for. Nevertheless, you can find some high quality flashcards from Physics and Maths Tutor, Quizlet, or my own community section, which has a free set of AQA Triple Science flashcards. By the end of week 1 and start of week 2, you need to get started. You need to really start grinding on the content and making sure you fill in any knowledge gaps. In these early weeks, you want to get as much work and as much content covered as possible, because 1, it's just better to finish earlier, and 2, it makes life easier when you could possibly get burnt out closer to the exams, and so just try to get as much done in these early periods. Obviously in moderation with regular breaks, but try to at least work for 2 to 3 hours of effective revision per day. And also, don't forget to alter your revision for different subjects. I used to think I could revise in the same way for everything, but that's not the case. Some subjects like maths need a heavy and intensive load of practice questions, whereas others, like English literature, are more based on understanding the context behind the text and maybe not so much answering questions, but planning what you're going to write in the exam. So make sure you do that to have the most effective revision possible. Moving on to week 3. Continue grinding on the content, trying to finish as much as possible. But here's where the forgetting curve is really going to become noticeable, and so you have to be making sure you're not only revising by active recall, which I expect you should be doing. For a reminder, that's anything that requires you to retrieve information, blurting, flashcards, any practice questions, retrieval, stuff like that. But then you also have to use spaced repetition, which is another technique that I've banged on about. Because by this point, you're going to realize you've forgotten all the content you learned in week 1. That's why I heavily recommend using Anki or some other spaced repetition tool to make sure that you're reviewing old content. And also make sure you're keeping up with these reviews, because by following Anki's algorithm, you are using the most optimal way to retain information. And with not much time left, you really have to be effective and optimal if you want to get the best grades in the summer. By week 4, you'll be well into Easter holidays and you want to be really intense with your revision. This is going to be the period where you're going to have the opportunity to get the most work done and not have to deal with homework set by teachers. So you really need to make sure you're locked in and working consistently. Create a consistent Easter routine, not staying up late, so you can wake up early and get some revision done in the morning. I always find it easier to work in the morning and get something done before the day, so that you're at least starting on a productive note, instead of procrastinating all the way to the evening and then struggling to find any motivation to work and just being really tired and ending up not doing it, which is going to lead to bad results, which is going to lead to you failing. And as you approach this end of your Easter holidays period, you want to be thinking about finishing content. You want to update your document and get a gauge, an idea of how much content you've actually covered. Another reality check, so you know whether you're up to date or whether you've been lagging behind. And in the Easter holidays, I'd expect you to be trying to complete at least 3 to 4 hours of effective revision, especially if you take a lot of subjects and you have a lot of content to cover. And you've got to remember that a lot of GCSEs is just memorizing content and putting it onto a page. The application questions aren't too strenuous or difficult, and so really you just got to memorize content and then apply this to past paper questions and memorize the answers from the past papers, and what will come up in the exam is probably going to be something really similar anyway. Now by week 5, this is where your revision is going to get very technical. You need to focus on exams technique. It's all good knowing all the content for the exam, but the difficult part comes with being able to apply all this knowledge to the exams with the right timing and the right way to answer questions. This all comes under exam technique, which is something you're going to focus on and bang out within week 5 and week 6. You're going to complete past papers but mark them extremely harshly, as if you're an examiner who doesn't want to give anyone marks unless they've actually gotten the question right. This will give you a very accurate representation of where you're working at, and if anything, you'll mark yourself lower than what you'd actually get, so that when it comes to results day, you're actually surprised by what you get because it's higher than what you've been achieving before. But this is the stage where so many people go wrong. When you've completed your practice questions, you must create a log or bank of the ones you get wrong. So many people will just get a question wrong, but be maybe satisfied with their grade that they get, or they might not even be satisfied, but they'll just leave it. They won't go over their mistakes. They'll just keep making the same mistakes on the same content over and over again. But that's the completely wrong way to go about it. You need to make a mistake and then understand why you got that wrong and memorize that so that you don't get it wrong next time. This can be turning it into a flashcard, creating a question bank of wrong answers, because it's probably quite embarrassing to make a mistake twice in a row, especially if you know you've gone over the answer before. And by week 6, you'll be approaching your exams. I would say for this point, start focusing on the exams you have earlier so that you can maximize your performance on those early exams. Also remembering that there is a half-term break in between exams that's very useful for revising for those later exams where things get a bit difficult. By this point, you want to be making sure you filled every single gap of knowledge using specifications and all the flashcards and resources that you've made, as well as just completing past paper after past paper, checking them, but also relaxing a bit because you're about to enter a difficult time. You don't want to burn yourself out too quickly, otherwise you won't even be able to use all the knowledge you've just learned in your exams. I hope that's a good plan for the next 50 days of what you should be doing to get the best grades possible this summer. Don't forget to subscribe for more grade 9 videos and advice. Thank you for watching. Bye.